All right, good evening, everyone. I'll call this regularly scheduled meeting of Bridgewater Town Council to order. And as always, the town of Bridgewater is located in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and it is our privilege to be here. Agenda's been circulated. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, motion to approve the agenda as circulated. Councillor Newell, seconded by Councillor Fagear. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Down to announcements. I think we have a few. I'll just start. A few of us are wearing our Team Canada jerseys. I don't know what year yours from.
Go Canada.
This is my 02 Salt Lake City jersey. So obviously the Olympics are in full swing, and wishing all our athletes, especially our Nova Scotia athletes, all the best. Announcements. Councillor Newell, you have a few?
I brought a watch strap.
All right, perfect.
It's Team Canada. Yes, several. First of all, huge thank you to the Downtown Bridgewater Business Committee and, of course, our very own Economic Development Officer, Donna Hatt, for organizing last week's Building Downtown Bridgewater event. Several of us on council were there, so it was really great to see the business owners and community members, employees of several businesses, to just talk about, like, what exactly does it look like to activate our downtown core. And then, of course, a reminder of our amazing, where the camera, Frost Fair coming up. We've got all kinds of great activities happening. On the 13th, we got free family swimming at the LCLC from 4:30 to 6:30. And then on Saturday, if you want to spend your Valentine's date at the Bridgewater Frost Fair from 10 to 1 at the old Bridgewater Memorial Arena, we'll have games, farmers market, live music, and much, much more. And then also happening on Saturday, we've got free skating at the LCLC from 4:30 to 6, and CD Saturday from 10 to 4 at the Des Brisés Museum. I think I at least got the gist. So a lot of fun stuff happening this weekend. I'm very excited.
Yeah,
I'll be at the BMA from 10 to 1, so I'm pumped.
Excellent. And I think on top of that, too, we're kicking off a Help Us Name the Community Hub.
Yes.
As part of the former arena, which is no longer arena, and it needs a new name. So that'll be kicking off at that same event that you can find Councillor Newell at on Empire Street. Councillor Fagear, did you have something?
Yes, I'd like to announce, of course, it's Lobster Crawl Month. So it's time, that means it's time for our annual economic outlook. And it will be this Thursday, February 12th from 5 to 7 at O'Regan's Hyundai showroom. That's 203 North Street in Bridgewater. We'll have a panel discussion, great conversation, catering by Hustle Bustle, so be sure to RSVP if you haven't already. Thank you.
Anything else from other members of council? I do want to note that, of course, February is Nova Scotia African Heritage Month, and we're pleased to acknowledge that Samir, our community navigator, has been working with a new group forming here in the area, the South Shore African Association, and they'll be kicking off the creation of the group on February 21st with a special event at the Des Brisés Museum. So watch for an official announcement coming out within days. Congratulations as well to Wave Seafood and Grill for having won the 2026 Lobster Roll-Off competition. Surprised Donna's not here with her claws. They won that last week. And they won second place in the Lobster Chowder competition this past weekend. And just a note, we have several restaurants and special events happening as part of the crawl. So you can either go on the town app under the events tab or go to bridgewater.ca and events for details. And also on Saturday, February 28th, be sure to register and participate in the 5K Lobster Crawl, proudly presented by the Bridgewater Guardian Pharmacy in partnership with the town. And we also have free transit on weekends brought to you by Kin Canada. So thank you to them for that sponsorship as well. Anything else from council for February? All right, great. Are there any members of the public here that wish to address council on any matters? Now is your chance. Like staring at all of you. Okay, hearing none, we'll go down to the minutes. We have the minutes from January 12th and January 26th. Any issues, errors, or omissions with those? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes as circulated? Councillor Newell, seconded by Councillor Conklin. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. And we are down to business arising and unfinished business. And this is first reading for amendment to land use bylaw for R1 to R2 zone.
Good evening, Council. Tonight, I will be speaking to the...
You can raise that up, Evan, if you want. Like this. There you go.
That's a lot better. Good evening, Council. Tonight I'll be speaking to the proposed amendment to the land use bylaw regarding the transition of 283 properties from the single-unit residential to the two-unit residential zone. The transition to R2 in these areas enables a gradual approach to gentle densification while respecting the infrastructure constraints of the town. It will allow landowners to add an additional unit of residential as of right, which has the potential to improve the efficiency of infrastructure within the town and allowing a greater number of people to live within walking distance from key amenities like schools, the LCLC, and the downtown commercial hub of King Street. The two areas encompass 283 properties, or roughly 15% of current R1 properties, selected collaboratively between the engineering and community development departments. Sewer sheds 4 and 6 are areas with the most adequate wastewater capacity and where new residential density would be most in line with the town's planning and strategic priorities. Area 1, bounded by Empire, Dufferin, High, and York Streets, is one of Bridgewater's central residential neighborhoods, ideal for gentle density. It features excellent walkability to services, transit, schools, and commercial hubs, while situated within adequate existing infrastructure capacity for small-scale development. Area 2, bounded by Star Street, King Street, and the Centennial Trail, is close to key amenities like the LCLC and commercial hubs. This area has seen significant improvements in wastewater capacity due to recent offsetting measures. This amendment is an important phase for one of the 5 initiatives included in the town's Housing Accelerator Fund agreement, delivering up to $3.3 million in federal funding. With a target of 367 new housing units between 2025 and 2028, Bridgewater is on its way to meeting the terms of this agreement. The strategy for the phased removal of R1 zoning, passed by Council in December of 2025, constituted one of the town's Housing Accelerator Fund initiatives approved in December 2024. Passage of the strategy directed staff to commence work and bring forward an amendment for the first phase of the transition to R2 zoning. The municipal planning strategy's low-density designation encompasses the single-unit and the two-unit residential zones, including all the properties included in this amendment. The MPS states, as to the benefits of the R2 zone, that it provides alternatives to single-unit dwellings at different price points to help meet different housing needs. It goes on to state that the two-unit dwellings are typically more efficient in terms of land use, material consumption, and the use of municipal infrastructure, while maintaining similar function and general appearance to single-unit dwellings. The MPS contains 15 objective statements to guide its policy. This amendment specifically comports with 4 of them. It encourages compact development to maximize the town's shared infrastructure. It enables the development of a full range of housing options. It enhances the historic downtown, and it improves the pedestrian experience through more housing opportunities within walkable neighborhoods. The two-unit residential zone will grant 1 additional residential unit as of right on the subject properties. Zoning standards, including height limits, building setbacks from property lines, are identical between the R1 and R2 zones. As such, any property owner choosing to build new housing will be governed by the same rules that currently exist. Bridgewater's land use bylaw includes a provision for properties that have main structures predating 1975, allowing them an additional residential unit so long as the main structure remains standing. Because of this provision, many properties in the R1 zone are currently already able to construct a second unit of housing. With this amendment, these properties will have the opportunity to add a third so long as they adhere to the zoning standards. This map shows the distribution of single-unit residential properties across town, with main structures built before August 1975 in blue and after August 1975 in yellow. Within the 2 areas included in this amendment, a majority of properties are shaded blue. Across town, only 6% of eligible properties under the 1975 conversion allowance have registered a second unit to date. These numbers indicate that market interest in gentle densification has been, up until now, modest. This amendment, therefore, is not expected to lead to significant new development in the near future. Rather, it is expected to lead to small, incremental change. These changes will be market-driven, made by individual homeowners looking to meet their housing needs. It should be noted that this amendment will not force change on any properties. This is a change intended to produce long-term impacts for housing affordability, housing suitability, downtown vibrancy, and municipal cost efficiency by relaxing regulatory hurdles. Allowing for more residents living within walking distance to Bridgewater's central commercial areas can help strengthen community, support for local businesses, and spread the property tax burden where services already exist. Comments from the engineering department were generally supportive. Since the amendment does not concern any one specific property, these comments were necessarily broad. By selecting properties within the areas with the best available wastewater capacity and with housing impacts expected to be very gradual, this amendment does not provide any immediate wastewater capacity concerns. A general note about service connections, on-street parking capacity, and the potential need for separate electrical service infrastructure constitute additional considerations from the department. As part of the Housing Accelerator Fund strategy, public engagements were held across Bridgewater during the autumn of 2025. Information sessions and community engagements were held at the LCLC, HB Studios, the South Shore Center, and the Bridgewater Farmers Market. Across these sessions, and also a public participation meeting was held on January 14th of 2025. 346 notices were sent to property owners in the affected areas and within a 30-meter buffer. 46 members of the public were in attendance. Feedback from engagements in the autumn was mostly positive, with popular interest in the possibility of additional dwelling units from homeowners and substantial feedback on the need for more affordable housing stock. Many people spoke of children and aging parents in need of housing. Feedback from the public participation meeting indicated a majority of attendees were not in favor of the initiative, with a broad series of concerns. Changes to the character of the neighborhood, privacy, and on-street parking were identified as the most common concerns, while correspondence leading to the PPM saw property values and tax impacts as the highest priority concerns. Letters of support cited the incremental nature of the change and the increased freedom to build on one's property as reasons for their support. With regards to the timeline of this amendment, it is proposed that a public hearing and second reading be held on March 9th of 2026. As such, it is staff's recommendation that council give first consideration to the proposed map amendment and schedule a public hearing for March 9th, 2026.
Okay. Thanks, Evan. Questions from members of council? Deputy
I
Mayor?
have a bunch. So can you explain the difference between pre and post 1975, why that's different?
Yeah, it's a provision in the land use bylaw. I believe it came about several decades ago. It was intended so that people who had properties or structures on properties predating the land use bylaw be afforded some latitude in what they could be, what could be done with their properties. So it's there to make sure that the first land use bylaw and subsequent land use bylaws made that allowance for existing residence and structures.
Is there any reason that we wouldn't make them match now?
That's a good question. I know conversations have been had about that conversion allowance. At this time, it's outside the scope of the work of this project and could certainly be revisited in the future.
Would that be something that would be under our full review? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we would probably revisit that when we do the larger review. Councilor Caldwell.
First, I'd like to say I really appreciated all the detailed notes on the public meeting. It was great. And then my other question was also about the pre-1975 home and conversion allowance. So it seems like at this point, if we're going to allow 2 units in a single dwelling, I don't know, it seems like it's antiquated, and I don't understand why we would have one house being able to do one thing and then the next door house not being able to because they're a year apart, conceivably. So anyway, so this is something based on what was just happened. This isn't something we would look at now. This is something we'd look at through the full
Through the full review.
plan review.
Yeah.
because it's, yeah, I had the same questions.
Yeah, it is an odd one, but
Yeah.
probably will be addressed in the full review for sure. Deputy Mayor?
So densifying a property, as an individual property, could mean reduced green space or tree canopy. Is there any protections, and currently there isn't a lot to say what you can and cannot remove from your property when you build or renovate a property. Are there any protections available?
At present, the building standards, zoning standards will remain the same, so you will need to maintain similar setbacks from the adjacent properties, those sorts of things. Essentially, what we see in other jurisdictions and in popular interest so far is in the sorts of units that won't have a tremendous footprint on properties, things like either garden suites or basement suites. So it is not expected that this will substantially change the greenery of the properties, but it is possible that that could be an impact.
Is that something that would also be considered in the overall review if we want to make sure that we have some protections in place to not flatten everything in immature neighborhoods?
That certainly can be.
Is that where it's most appropriate?
Yeah, I can't speak to the full gamut of in plan review at the moment, but that will be done at the direction of council. So plenty of opportunity for that conversation.
I'm glad you raised that, because we've had this conversation before around the council table where certainly for a larger development, and then we always wonder why they clear all the trees.
Mm-hmm.
So just to Evan's point, like the rules for this don't change that, right? You could right now clear all your trees from your property if you wanted, whether we make this change or not. But I know that council has raised this concern just in general, so I would hope that under the larger review, we do deal with that anyway, because we can have setbacks, but our setbacks don't necessarily mean that there's trees maintained and things like that, so thank you for bringing us to that one. Any other questions, Councillor Newell?
If there are no other questions, I'm happy to make a motion.
Yeah, and just so the
Okay, yeah.
public, as the motion will be that there's a public hearing on March 9th, so that doesn't mean that we're not voting on this item, yes or no, today. We're moving it to the public hearing. So just to ensure that there's clarity on that, but yes, if you'd like to make a
I
motion.
think Deputy Mayor had
Yeah.
another question.
Oh, you have another question? Okay, yeah.
This wouldn't allow for someone to maybe take a smaller, older home that might have affordable rent, tear it down, and rebuild a triplex or something like that, would it?
They would not be able to build a triplex, no.
Right.
If you can build 3 units, that would be due to having a structure pre-existing 1975. So if you were to tear down that structure, you would therefore be limited to 2 units on that property. That said, we don't govern what people do as of right on their property. So if a property owner wanted to change their structure, they would be free to do so according to the standards and bylaws that we do have. But no, a triplex would not be possible in that situation.
Okay.
Yep.
Do another. So with our wastewater capacity issues, and this being as of right, it's a little bit less predictable. So I looked at what other communities had done the same or similar. The removing R1, I found mostly cities, and this is just my simple research. The only community that I could find that did something similar in Canada was Wolfville, and they did what they called gentle upzoning, which allows ADUs, backyard suites, and so on, to allow incremental growth instead of removing R1, which tends to be the highest potential for growth. So if we have any concern about wastewater, why would we go for the highest potential growth instead of the more passive, softer approach?
That may be an issue with our communication strategy in that case. We are in fact going from the most restrictive to the second most restrictive
Okay.
of the zones. So this will be just one small step forward, but this will be in line with Wolfville, as you state there. We're going just from 1 to 2 rather than a more permissive zone.
Okay. That was it.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Councillor Newell?
I move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater conduct first reading of bylaw number 236 as bylaw to amend the land use bylaw to transition 283 properties from R1 single unit to R2 2-unit zoning in priority areas to enable gradual density increases while respecting infrastructure constraints to allow landowners the opportunity to add an additional residential as of right and to improve efficiency of infrastructure and services as contained in Appendix A and document number 23-110M, and that council proceed to a public hearing scheduled for March 9th, 2026 during its regularly scheduled meeting of council.
Thank you. Seconded by Councilor Bashir. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Under new business, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference is in Edmonton on June 4th to 7th. This is where between 3,500 and 5,000 municipal officials will gather to share best practices, do some education, learning, see some innovative new products and services that we could probably deploy in our community. And so because it is also our annual general meeting of the FCM, we do need to appoint voting delegates because this is where decisions are made. And so I'll be looking to find out who wishes to go. I know Councillor Wynot's not here, but he did want to put his name forward if there was space. So it's me and up to 2 others. So I don't know who else wanted to go. Councillor Conklin, you wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, we can
Or-
decide.
Or we can just, Councillor Wynot's not here, like you snooze, you lose. Like,
That's what he gets for going on
That was the first thought
vacation.
that came to my mind.
yeah, I mean,
Just bring me some stuff from the trade show.
Okay.
it's totally up to council what you wish to do. I told Councillor Wynot no guarantees. He didn't take us with him where he's going now, so. Councillor
Just a
Cole.
suggestion.
Yeah,
So can we appoint 4 and only 3 go?
yes, you can.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And we could decide later who's actually going?
You can, we've done that in the past, I think, where we've had someone change their mind.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. So if you would like to make that motion, that would be great.
Okay, I'm not sure, is it the people on the other side?
Yeah, it's all, this whole side of the room is doing a lot of the heavy lifting at the conference.
That way we could let
Just
Counselor Wynot down in person.
That sounds great, inappropriate.
Okay.
Harsh.
You want me to make that motion?
Yes, please.
Okay. I move the town council for the town of Bridgewater appoint Mayor David Mitchell, councillors McDonald, Conklin, and Wynot as delegates for the 2026 FCM annual conference scheduled for June 4th to June 7th in Edmonton, Alberta, and approve all registration, transportation, accommodation, and other reasonable associated expenses for their attendance.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Newell. Further discussion? Oh, bummer. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. 11.2, Des Brisset Museum session and de-accession.
And as CARES coming up, just remind council that this is another step on our journey for rebranding the museum, and it's another crucial step, and I think one of the big ones since the new Arts, Culture, Museum Advisory Committee has been established.
Correct. Good evening. So I'm here at the request of the Arts, Culture, and Museum Advisory Committee, the ACM, as I'll refer to it, to recommend to council that the authority to accession and de-accession for the Des Brisset Museum collection be delegated to the ACM Advisory Committee. To accession, simply put, is to formally take an item into the collection of the museum, and to de-accession is to formally remove an item for the collection. There are many reasons to do so, which are in the report. I won't get into them into too much detail unless you request. So prior to the dissolution of the Bridgewater Museum Commission, the BMC, the authority was held by the BMC, and as a part of the dissolution, the authority of the BMC has become the domain of council, which includes accession and de-accession. So the suggestion from the Arts, Culture, and Museum Committee would be that the authority to accession and de-accession be delegated to that committee, which would most closely align with how it was previously done via the BMC. The other option would be for staff to do it, for it to be delegated to staff, or it would be to be keeping it with council, which would mean we would be coming to council with these items to deaccession and being a presentation on why and have those decisions made here. So the delegation to the ACM, the Arts Culture Museum Committee, would mean that it would both be a thorough and broad perspectives to be considered within that process, but also be efficient so that the process can happen swiftly as needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Questions? Councillor Newell?
In the event assuming we delegate it to the committee, in the event, say there was, some public were upset about either the ascension or de-ascension, does council still retain, can we serve it as appeals body? Can we override that committee's decision? If we were to put this through?
Well,
It would have to, if the authority was given to them, then the process would happen in which that piece would be, I would assume, de-accession, or I guess if, in the case of taking it accession, and then I guess if council heard about it, then we could,
Reverse that decision?
well, we could address it, and we could come to council to present on our reasoning, and then have that decision be kind of elevated, I suppose.
yeah, I think once the authority has been delegated to the advisory committee, they're the decision-making body. So there's no appeal process that you might have in some of these things. So Councillor Caldwell would be the council's rep on the committee, and that authority has been delegated. So that's one of the options. And as Kara said, there's two other options, and the council could retain that authority if they wanted to, and they could hear a detailed description of all those items and make detailed decisions here in council chambers for all those individual pieces of artwork, or, you could ask staff to do it. So.
Deputy Mayor?
Can an advisory committee be given decision-making authority that is linked to a cost?
What was the last part, sorry?
An
Is linked-
advisory be given authority to make decisions because they're an advisory?
It's up to council, but
Okay.
the short answer is yes, providing it's within the framework of the MGA, yeah.
And Jessica did speak to the town solicitor, and they confirmed that these options and the ability to delegate authority to the advisory committee was possible within a legal framework.
Yep.
Are there often times when things have to be done very swiftly?
Well, in the case of the mold remediation a few years ago, that process was done by the BMC, and it was needed to happen somewhat swiftly. We do have a number of items in our collection that are currently items from the Fort Point Museum that would actually be better served in their collection, and so that's one of the items that we're looking at deaccessioning. There's pieces from an archaeological dig, like a brick or some different little pieces, like nails and things that were part of an archaeological dig there, that we would like to deaccession from our collection so they can be taken into the collection of this other museum, that it's better contextualized to house those pieces and provide interpretation for them.
So there's no rush, though?
To make this decision, like this giving the ability to the Arts Culture Museum Committee to accession and deaccession would mean that we would be able to deaccession those items and give them to the Fort Point Museum. In the meantime, we're going through a process of loaning them as we're figuring out this process.
So, Kara, I think you said in the past the Museum Commission did this function, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would have been done the same process, just by a different body.
But where the dissolution
Yep.
delegated all authority to council, that's why we're here to get clarity on then where the decision-making authority for this item falls. And this will be a part of our looking at through all of our policies and procedures over the coming year to keep finding out. We might have to come back and say, oh, there's another piece that we need to address, but that's the staff work to come.
Councillor Caldwell?
Yeah, I know that in the past, the issues like mold, when they get on items, they want to dispose of them quickly, if possible. So that is one thing. And I will say that, so the committee is amenable to taking on this responsibility. And my only, the only thing I wanted council to be aware of and to discuss, I think somebody brought up, maybe Councillor, maybe you did. So is the issue around, if there's some theoretical item that goes through deaccession and is, often they would be destroyed. And it's destroyed, and it's something that, again, this is all theoretical. I don't even know of an example, but something that maybe people in the community wouldn't want destroyed. Then it's on a volunteer committee to take the heat on that rather than elected representatives, which is sort of what we're here for, right? So that's my only hesitancy. I don't even know if I'd call it a hesitancy. I just wonder if council's comfortable with that, delegating that responsibility. I think that the committee is perfectly capable of doing this, and I'm okay with that. But council does need to understand that there could come a time in the future where, a decision's made that, it lands the committee in hot water as opposed to council.
Yeah.
And I will say just briefly that, like, the reasons for deaccessioning would be as referenced here, deterioration of an item, duplication, danger, or a lack of fit to the collection's mandate. And in the case of a piece still being in a good condition, we would do our best as staff to find another museum that it would be a more appropriate fit, like in the case of these items going to Fort Point. So I just want to put that context of like what would get deaccessioned or why.
Yeah, so I respect and understand that in a previous body they were able to do that. I think ultimately we're all elected officials, and at the end of the day, like, let's use the example of duplication, for example. Okay, 2 items to the committee feel like these are 2 items that are duplicate, but some group of people feel like, no, this actually isn't a duplicate, this is an historically significant item. I would much rather, I'd feel more comfortable if council, with the outside exception of, say, health and safety. So you say mold. Okay, well, mold can probably be attributed to health and safety. Maybe a quicker decision needs to be made in that specific situation. But otherwise, personally, I think assertion of an item is one thing where we take that into the collection. I think to dispose of an item, personally, I think the committee is more than welcome to make that recommendation, but I ultimately think that should come to council, where if that gives citizens an avenue to share their grievances, and ultimately that burden falls on us as the elected officials of the elected officials of this town, rather than a group of volunteers who I'd feel for and they give their time. But also the unfortunate part is that a committee can kind of feel like the blob. There's no, like, who do I contact in this committee? What exactly connection do I have to that? A lot of times the decisions that come out of committees will probably come too late to the community before they realize that happens. So I certainly don't feel comfortable relinquishing that authority beyond, say, something when it comes to health and safety.
And the item would come to the committee via staff as well. And so in the case of, for example, duplication, where we think about having a policy in terms of collection, collection rationalization, which means understanding what the stories we're telling with our collection are, and thus what stories are potentially underrepresented by our collection. So to say that if we have 3 organs and they're taking up a bunch of space in our storage and we are at max capacity, but we have the opportunity to take in something that is of an underrepresented story, then we would only be deaccessioning for duplication in order to then house something that we are not currently able to represent. So we don't take deaccession lightly.
Deputy Mayor.
I absolutely get where you're coming from. That's where I started. But knowing the history of the people that usually sit around that table and their passion for what they do and their knowledge and their commitment to what they do for the museum, I feel like they're in a better position to make those decisions than I am. And I feel confident that if it was something potentially controversial, that staff would make the call to bring it to council, and that is still an option on the table, correct? Mm-hmm. That wouldn't remove that option if staff was questioning a decision that it could come to council?
Potentially.
Yeah, I think you'd have to work through the process with the committee, but I think your point on staff's awareness of the museum artifacts, I think, is probably our best and most reliable source, and I'm very confident that the people that are working there, if they didn't know what they were dealing with, they would get the knowledge and bring that information to the advisory committee. And the advisory committee can always ask for more detail. If they don't feel confident enough in the information they have, they can ask staff to bring back further detail to help them make a decision. So I'm pretty confident that this will be a good mechanism, and if after a year or so it doesn't work, we can always revisit it.
And there's also the option for like staff to be coming to council maybe on like a yearly basis to just give a bit of an overview of where our, like what has happened with our collection over the year. So we could also do that, and then that would give council just like a little bit more eyes on things and the ability to go, oh, okay, a bunch of decisions, you know what I mean? Just like understand the decision making and the rationale a little bit better and do it, but do it in a timely fashion. Whereas I feel like the potential of council taking on this responsibility could really bog down a very busy agendas that we already have. So going through kind of like a nail and a brick and a whatever, item by item during council, I'm just saying it might take a lot of time.
For me, it's the Museum Commission has always been doing this for us. So in my 17 years around this table, the items haven't come to council because they've always been, the Museum Commission has used their knowledge to make those decisions. When we dissolved the Museum Commission, we now had to find a new process, which is essentially, the recommendation is to have the people who are around the Museum Commission table continue to make those decisions. And so I do get what you're saying, Councillor Newell, and if there had been times in the past where we had perhaps had some public feedback that was, I wish the commission hadn't done this, or what were you thinking getting rid of this item or bringing in this item, then I would want that to be able to come back to council and us to have that authority. But where is this really, to me, again, if we hadn't dissolved the Museum Commission, then we would actually not be having this conversation today. So I'm seeing it as just reasserting the authority for the group that we always had the authority to do this. But if there's a mechanism to revisit that after a year or two, because we've got complaints and it's not working, then we can probably have that conversation and bring that back. That's just my 2 cents on this. Councillor Colville, did you have another?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that staff and the committee are in a good position to do this work. I have no question about that. And I'm in favor of the recommendation, but I did want council to be wide-eyed about, a possible, problem in the future, right? But I am in favor of the motion.
Motion?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, because it's going to take a long time to explain to me the brick and the nail.
Well, you can come on over to the museum, we'll sit you down and have a chat.
I move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater delegate authority for the accessioning and decessioning of items in the Des Brisets Museum collection to the Arts, Culture, and Museum Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Conklin. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. We're down to the REMO 2026-2027 budget. So, as we wait for the acting CAO to pop back into his seat. Folks remember last year we went through a process where we kind of changed the way we do the budget. And so instead of it just kind of quickly going to councils for approval after the REMO advisory group has talked it through at REMO, comes back to the councils, goes back to REMO, just adding that little bit extra step so that council has that check-in for REMO. And some of those changes, Councillor Newell was on the committee that brought forth some of those changes that we made, which were, I think, a huge positive step for us as an organization. So I was trying to buy you some time.
Thank you.
Ran like
no,
around
that's
really
good.
quick.
That's great. I was trying to keep the momentum up.
Talking is my favorite.
And although Angela, who's our regional coordinator, isn't here tonight, the mayor is on the regional advisory committee, and I'm there on the meeting, so I think we can field any questions.
Yeah,
that you
and
have.
Councillor Newell.
And Councillor Newell as well.
okay.
Sorry, yeah.
It's okay. Forgotten.
I remembered it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, so I'm just going to hit some highlights, and the first one I just want to go through is some of the activations that happened this year, just so you know that Remo is actively involved in some of the things that we had to deal with this year. I know that there was the propane leak was pretty early on in the year, and first, not everybody was aware of that one, but it was an evacuation. We had a drowning in the river in the middle of the summer. The Long Lake fire, most people are aware of, and that was one that didn't directly impact it with us, but we were engaged in terms of Angela was involved, and they were managing resources, so we were still managing some of our fire resources. The drought, as you all remember, we had some high winds and then already had 2 winter storms already this year. So it's an ongoing thing, and we are very active in our activations. And I will say that I brought a couple of weeks ago our new governance structure that kind of gave some teeth to some of these things so we can get better turnout, and that's already having some good impact on that. I just want to talk briefly about the work plan, so you can just get a sense of the same sort of level of work that's going on with Remo, and that's Angela going out and doing some of those engagements with stakeholders and coordinating training and exercises. So there's still about the same amount of work going on, a little bit more in some areas there. I want to just talk briefly about the grant. We have a $100,000 grant that we got from Emergency Management, so that's going to help defray some costs over the next few years, and you'll see that in the budget. But it's a good news story. It's declining over time, but we've got $100,000 for 4 years that will decline over time. So you can see the overall budget has gone from 435 down to 380 because of that grant. So good news story. Again, it's a short term, but we'll take the grants when we can get them. So this in 2025, the town of Bridgewater portion of the budget was $52,636, and without that grant, it would have been at $59,500. But going in with the grant right now for 2026, it's at $51,941, which is essentially the same amount of money as it was for 25-26. So a good news story in the short term for the grant, and yeah, go up a little bit next year, but overall pretty straightforward for this year, year over year. So that's a high-level review of the budget. Happy to take any questions.
Questions from council? No? Councillor Noel?
I move that Town Council for the Town of Bridgewater approve the 2026-2027 operating budget for Remo in the amount of $380,881, with the Town of Bridgewater's share being $51,941.43, as presented in document number 26-023.
Thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor McDonald. Further discussion? Yep. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. I will just say, as we kind of move along, we're very fortunate to be part of a Remo across our region, because if you think about the wildfires that have happened very, very close to home, to be able to pool those resources is, heaven forbid it happen in our backyard. To be able to pool those resources is vital. In your package, you have the Lunenburg County Senior Safety Program January report, and a reminder to the public that everything that is in our council package is available online under Town Council and agendas, and every document that we have, you can have. We are down to 11.5, outdoor pool naming rights, sponsorship, and free admission.
All right. Thank you, Council. We are here, this is a Policy 85, Corporate Sponsorship and Naming Rights piece around the outdoor pool. So first, I do want to start with a thank you to O'Regan Subaru for nearly a decade of tremendous community support for the outdoor pool. They have been the naming sponsor of the pool since 2016. And with the exception of 2020, the year everybody would like to forget when the pool was not open, they have been the title sponsor with the name on the outdoor pool. Since 2022, it's been a year-to-year commitment, whereas after their first 5-year commitment expired in 2022. And this year, Michelin Bridgewater submitted a multi-year naming rights proposal. So we went to O'Regan Subaru and let them know this, and and they said, you know what, it's time for us to step back and for a new sponsor to come forward. So I'm not bringing you two proposals, I'm only bringing one. But it is very exciting that Michelin Bridgewater has submitted a proposal for naming rights for a 5-year commitment of $15,000 a year to support the outdoor pool. For the last number of years, sorry, I'm actually going to go to a third thank you, which is to all the other incredible community sponsors that we have, local businesses and community organizations that have continued to support the outdoor pool. So we, a number of years ago, sort of said there's all these different sponsorship opportunities after the original 3 sponsors, O'Regan Subaru, the United Way, and the Bridgewater Barracudas. After that 5-year contract sort of came to an end, we solicited we had people knocking on the door actually wanting to help support the outdoor pool. And so for the last year, the pool was free because we had enough sponsorship to both cover the previous amount of sponsorship that we'd had, plus the potential revenue that we had been getting on an annual basis from people paying to go in the door. And so we do have, and in the report is a list of all the returning sponsors that we have, for a total already secured of $32,500 in sponsorship for free weekend swims, free weekday swims, and together with Michelin's naming rights proposal. So the CAO level of sponsorship, so between $1,500 and $5,000 the CAO can approve. So the weekday and weekend swims have already been approved. But the naming rights, anything over $5,000 requires council's approval. And we still have another element that Michelin had been doing for the last number of years, which was the poolside cool-down zone. And so we will do an open call out to community to see who might be interested in taking that on, which would hopefully bring us up to the $38,500 in sponsorship, which we then will be proposing through the budget process that the pool remain free to access again this year, because we will have exceeded even what we received this past year. We've already met what we received in 2025. So, yeah, any questions?
Any questions? It's amazing. To me, yes.
Yeah, amazing.
Yep.
Thank you for that update. I'll make a motion.
I know you want to.
I move that town council for the town of Bridgewater authorize the, number one, authorize the corporate sponsorships as contained in document 26-025. And 2, approve Michelin North America Canada as the new name for the outdoor pool with a 5-year commitment from 2026 to 2030 at a sponsorship rate of $15,000 per year. And thirdly, authorize the outdoor pool name change from O'Regan Subaru Outdoor Pool to Michelin Bridgewater Outdoor Pool.
Wonderful, thank you. Seconded by Deputy Mayor McDonald. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Just a note for the public that aren't maybe reading our agenda package, those other sponsors are South Shore Center and Castle Atlantic for $5,000, and then Carrie's Insurance and Financial Services for $2,500, O'Regan Subaru for $2,500, and RA Corcoran Funeral Home for $2,500. So huge community partners and, invaluable to providing services to our community. Those free swims are, used by hundreds of people, families, youth a year. So that's wonderful. Thank you. Down to our last item, marketing levy funds expenditure. Oh, I see gloves on. I see a sweater on.
Just crawling up, Mayor. Sorry. I do have the gloves. I also have my claws, but I did not bring them out this evening. So indeed, I thought it was appropriate, since we were coming up to step forward to talk about the marketing levy, which is all tied to the tourism industry, and because it's Nova Scotia Lobster Crawl all month long. And yes, we've been crawling, but it is warm in here. So I'll just take it down to that level. Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here with you this evening to follow up specifically on a strategic priority of council. The marketing levy itself, as a bylaw, came into being and took effect April 1st, 2025, as a priority of yours. We continued to move through the process to deploy and implement it over the course of this past year. A few learnings along the way, but we've moved our way through it and got through process, and certainly have had a full year, nearly a full year of the marketing levy, a 3% levy paid for by guests spending the night within our short-term accommodation properties here in Bridgewater. Before you and in your report, there is a complete summary there. What we're bringing to you tonight is based on, there's a bit of discussion here, but a recommendation, which was your request when we put the marketing levy in place, that prior to being able to distribute any of the funds that were being collected and held in reserve, you requested that a framework for expenditures be brought forward for review. So that's what we're bringing to you today, with a number of elements. So without further ado, just in getting to the discussion component, over the course of this past year, as I mentioned, the levy has been implemented. Staff resources have really been spent providing oversight and management of the compliance of the short-term rentals. That's been a system whereby properties offering short-term rentals of 28 days or less must register with the province of Nova Scotia and receive a registration number. That is the trigger that we receive from the province to flag and indicate that we have a short-term rental accommodation. Previously, it was hotels and accommodations of 3 rooms or more. When the new registration came into effect, it was all accommodations. If they were selling overnight stays of 28 days or less, they had to be registered with the province. So we have that database. We have 29 properties on our database. That evolves. It may come and go. Some of those short-term stays, like homes or apartments within a home, may convert from being, for example, an Airbnb or a property on bookings.com, and then they've deflected, or they actually have placed their property back into the market for long-term stay and have taken on a 3-month rental. They're now excluded from the marketing levy. So it's a constant. I guess what I'm trying to share with you is that the list is never just, it comes out once a year and it's a done deal. We're monitoring it monthly, and then we're working with each of the properties as we learn that they've become registered with the province to introduce them to the marketing levy. And in fact, before they can register, they have to provide a letter of compliance from the town, from our planning department, indicating that they have checked in with us. We currently do not have regulations governing short-term stays, so it's just part of that process. So as a part of that, we see some numbers coming and going. Sometimes there are no sales at a property, so therefore there is no 3% marketing levy revenue being generated. So again, there's a bit of flexibility there. We're monitoring it all, and certainly with the help and support of our Department of Finance, we're keeping an eye on it. So we have 29 properties owned by 23 operators representing 213 rooms. That's where we've sat kind of, for the most part, for the past year. While we don't have 100% compliance with all operators reporting, we are moving through that process. Again, some are just coming online, we're educating them, presenting them with the documentation, but also in the case with folks like Airbnb, working through the logistics. We're working with significantly large organizations and trying to work with a local Airbnb who has 1 unit and attempting to comply. So we're working through that. It's been fairly smooth, but it is a lot of hand-holding as we go through the process. The levy remittance is currently being received by both the third-party platforms and individuals, including our hotels themselves. We have 3 hotel operators who account for 80% of our rooms in Bridgewater. That's 170 room nights, or rooms that are available each night, and they account for about 88% of the levy funds. As of December 31st, 2025, we had received $92,000 in marketing levies, and that has been held in reserve. We are anticipating a projection of $105,000 for this, $100,000 for the year 25-26, anticipating $105,000 for the fiscal year coming up, 26-27, and we expect to see that gradually increase as everybody comes online and in light of implementing the tactics that will come forward as a result of this framework here tonight. The goal is to increase the number of overnight stays, the length of an overnight stay. Why come and stay for one night when you should stay two? It's yield and it helps to create those extensions. And then thirdly, some of the impact will be the average daily rate that a property can acquire per night. So as the average daily, if you have a $100 room night and 3%, that's the volume. As your average daily rate goes up, the 3% goes up. So again, just to illustrate that the numbers will vary, but we're projecting that it will continue to gradually grow. Within the framework that we've provided to you, there are four components. The allocation recommendation based on the 2026-27 funds projection of $105,000 are broken down as follows. An administrative fee of 5% of the annual levy. That administrative fee is retained by the town, supporting our activities undertaken to support compliance, including collection, reporting, fiscal management, and funds management for the events and marketing program. So there is a cost to us as a town to manage these pieces, and as has been the precedent set in other jurisdictions, there is an administrative component, and that's what we're looking at there as a part of the recouping. We're looking at a 2-year term pilot position, salary component for tourism and events development officer, which is intended for 2-year as a pilot. We had discussed potentially doing it for 1, but you get an individual stepping in, they're just getting started, and then you have to stop again. So the idea here is let's give it a chance to breathe. We have the revenues coming in. We have a year of reserves behind us to support us while we're going through the process. Giving us 2 years will allow us the opportunity to undertake the tourism and event development plan, establish relationships with the accommodation operators, begin building packages, building out our communication plan for marketing, et cetera. It just gives us that momentum. So we're recommending as part of the framework that we do this as a 2-year pilot and that it would take effect April 1st of 26-27 fiscal, and we will be asking for pre-budget approval in this framework as we discuss it tonight. And then the final component is taking the balance. So you take the 5% administrative fee from 100% of the levy fees coming in. Then you account for a term position and a 2-year pilot position and the salary associated with that. The balance of the resources are there to support marketing and events. That the actual amount annually will change because it depends on how much money comes in and how the percentages are allocated. For the purposes in this case, we're looking at about 15% of the total marketing levy dollars for 25-26, and that we would split those evenly between marketing. You can't create a tourism and event development plan and not have some resources to start marketing. So that would support that. Intended to leverage and collaborate with industry so that it's cooperative dollars. Bringing in our restaurants, our attractions, our accommodation operators are participating at this level. There's an opportunity to bring in others, as well as leverage other grants, other funding programs, et cetera. So it's meant to leverage and give us incremental revenues to create a marketing campaign, update websites, ensure that we have those elements in play. The events component is seed money for incremental events to attract increased overnight stays and help us showcase the region as a place to live, work, and play, but to support the expansion of the tourism industry. Again, the marketing and event component is smaller in year 1 because the pot of marketing levy resources is smaller. What won't be variable going forward will be the administrative and the salary. But as revenues come up with the marketing levy, we'll continue to grow the pot of resources available for marketing and events. And I know that was one of Council's priorities in looking at this program, was how can we help leverage significant events to come into the area and have some seed money to get that started. So the role of the staff position will be to grow the number of overnight stays so that the levy pot continues to increase and leverage that to turn it into incremental applications for funding and collaborations. So those are the framework elements of the resource called a marketing levy. And the recommendation, what we're asking of council is to consider it for a 2-year term, and at the 18-month touch point, we would come back to you with, here's how it's going. Here are some tweaks or adjustments that we might like to suggest to you, but then move towards finalization. So that would give us, we would be in year 3 of having the levy in place and much more confident about how the revenues are coming in, the impact it's having, and how we're seeing that collaboration within the community, not only here in Bridgewater, but how we leverage that within the South Shore and the province and moving it through implementing our tourism and event development plan. So that's the framework that we brought forward. There's a number of initiatives that we have undertaken, specifically advancing us from a tourism perspective as we've been nurturing towards this. Those are all included in the appendix of your document. So things like having the town of Bridgewater actually on novascotia.com. We weren't there before. We've participated in a number of the provincial programs, the emerging destinations, the Ask the Visitor, and currently we have the tourism digital plan program underway where we're assessing Explore Bridgewater and moving it from a directory of listings to the first touch point for welcoming a visitor to our community and how we move them through an itinerary and showcasing events and encouraging them to extend their length of stay. So there's been a number of initiatives. This role and this opportunity brings this forward. And it would be a position, the staff position and continuation of management of the marketing levy would fall under the auspice of your economic development officer. That position is being rescoped. As you had reviewed previously in-camera sessions, community navigator as well as the current events coordinator that we have in place for 10 hours a week. That position evolves and becomes this position, the tourism and events development officer. So there's a transition there, still falls all within, and we're asking for a 2-year trial, a pilot, to move this through from that perspective.
Okay, any questions, Councillor Caldwell?
Do we know if MODL is moving forward with the same tax, and if so, where they're at with that?
The marketing levy status with other municipal units, like MODL, to date, they are not, I'm not aware of them pursuing it further.
Okay.
We have other municipal units, and again, to your point, we had discussed all the municipal units in Lunenburg County moving forward with this kind of a program. Each one seemed to be continued, even as you had approved it in early 2025 to come forward. Everyone is still at a different position, not on the same page.
Councillor Cochran.
Do we know what percentage of compliance we're sitting at? I noticed that we haven't achieved 100%, which I'm not surprised, really. I mean,
We'll get there.
any idea where we're sitting there? Like,
It's right around 65-70%.
really? Okay.
Yep. And in some cases, the compliance is, they were coming online perhaps late in the summer, early fall, working them through the process. But then the compliance, if you recall, because we're working through third-party platforms, not all of our properties are reporting directly to us. The levy, for example, with Booking.com and Expedia, does not come from the operator here. It actually is a remittance from the parent company and the platform that's taking the bookings. So alignment of who's reporting the checks and balances, we're still working through those, and that's something that we're working across the province. Municipal Affairs is working towards having a resource person in place to help establish how these third-party platforms, how a municipal unit can negotiate with them for better insight and information and confirmation of how they're reporting. But I can tell you that certainly Bookings.com and Expedia submit, aligning it against which properties have collected and remitted, those alignments. And that's what we had shared with you early on, was that some of these alignments were going to be difficult, but they are going through that process. Airbnb, different approach. Rather than them collecting and then remitting to us the 3%, we've got a process, we figured out the process. The proponents created as an extra line item in their collection. And so at the touch point, it's charged to the guest when they make the reservation. But when Airbnb does the payout to the operator, they include that 3% to the operator. But it doesn't always happen that way either. And so there's some hiccups in there. So that's where the compliance, it's really difficult to say that we don't have 100% because we're still working through the logistics. But what I can tell you is certainly we're at 92,000 as of December 31st in reserve, and we are on track for about 100,000, and we'll work to continue to seek that compliance as we bring folks on.
Deputy Mayor, and then back to you.
Can you explain to me how the events coordinator, the navigator, and this position, did you say that they are all combined in some way?
Community navigator will continue. Samir continues in his role. It's just the reporting now comes when we had the adjustment within our communications manager moving to an officer position. Community navigator began reporting to this role, the economic development officer. The events coordinator that we currently have, which is a part-time working through the supporting of events, that position will evolve into this one. So it's not incremental. Sorry. It is incremental in that it's going from a part-time into this full, but it is a replacement for that position. Okay. So all of that responsibility that is currently our event coordinator, the 10 hours a week, will fall under this position to help us grow out the events, work collaboratively with a number of our committees, and support the ongoing development.
So we're making a part-time position a full-time?
Yeah, and your part-time is 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're creating a position.
We are, as a 2-year pilot, for starters.
Councillor Conklin.
So actually, that just gave me another question. So I got a couple, but
Yeah.
go back and forth here. So just to piggyback on what Deputy Mayor was asking, so this new position, we're kind of looking at 85,000.
Mm-hmm.
With that, are we looking at a net increase of 75 or whatever the 10-hour-a-week event coordinator salary? Where did that go? So the savings on the 10-hour-per-week event coordinator,
Is being replaced. So that savings I'll have to go back into, so we will not have that expense.
yeah.
So that's in in our
Okay.
administrative budget. Yep.
So then this new position at whatever, let's say 37 and a half hours, we're really only increasing the salary or the compensation component by 27 and a half hours. Is that more or less
Yes.
sort of kind of?
Yes, but acknowledging that all of the expenses associated with the tourism and event development officer and the plan all come from the marketing levy.
Yeah.
Where right now it
Yeah.
comes from the general tax rate.
Correct. So, and that was the intent, was how do we bring Bridgewater into the tourism and event sector without it having a direct impact on the taxpayer? And that's why this marketing levy had been identified as an opportunity to leverage that. And again, the unique and tremendous opportunity within this is under the right auspices, we have the opportunity to leverage even that annual marketing levy resource. If it's 105,000 next year, my aspiration would be through other leveraging of projects. There's an incremental $50,000, $60,000 that's brought in to help support and be a catalyst to continually grow it. So it's perpetuating and moving us forward without it having a direct impact on our taxpayer budget.
Oh my gosh, this question there. So Deputy Mayor, then over this side of the room, then that side.
So, right now, we anticipate $100,000 in that pot.
Yep.
We hope to be about the same
Yes.
next year. Could grow, could reduce, we don't know. The position would be covered by that pot of money, and there would be a small amount left to do things with.
Yes,
So there would be no money coming out of the general tax rate for
correct.
this new position and these new activities.
Correct.
Fantastic.
Yep, it's all meant to be incremental and self-sustaining.
And it's always been positioned that way, yeah.
Yeah. Councilor Bashir.
I guess my question would be, how was it determined, sort of that it was a full-time position for the tasks at hand versus a part-time, for example? Like, you know, could it be like a 60-70% and more funds available for the events? I just posing that as a question, how it was determined that it would be a full-time.
Yeah. We've prepared the job description and looking at the level of effort of what's required to get this underway. The development of a tourism and event development plan itself, and then its deployment. Looking at the level of engagement that we need for ongoing maintenance, management, updating of websites, creation of itineraries, supporting the events that are already in place and growing. There is a full-time role there, and it has the potential to support it. Well, it can support itself, and it will provide those resources and supports that will enable us to participate in tourism and event creation, development, and ongoing management. So there are plans and aspirations for incremental, but working directly with the industry to do so is going to take a full-time requirement.
So just to follow
And
up.
again, sorry, just prior to,
Yep.
because it's a 2-year pilot, being able to assess, there's usually a lot of heavy work, and then once you get something started, there's tremendous amount just to maintain it. So again, it's a 2-year pilot to assess where is it, and then we would be coming back to you with a recommendation for consideration.
So do you see this staff person as developing relationships with other partners outside town of Bridgewater and connecting with those stakeholders, if you may?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So and I appreciate, we didn't share a full job description, but tasked with creating and implementing the tourism and events development plan. The focus of this role is to foster increased economic activity resulting from visitors to Bridgewater. The priority of the position is supporting the sustainability and demand for existing businesses and experiences while sparking the development of new ones, strengthening year-round visitation, maintaining the integrity and authenticity of our community, fostering inclusivity and accessibility, and ensuring alignment with community values and aspirations. This will be development, marketing and promotions, not solely within the town of Bridgewater, but working to collectively look at regional. We are a hub and a connector. So how do we build those packages, those itineraries, the events that are happening? How do we ensure that the events, and even those events that we've supported in the past, ones we host and those that are being hosted here, how do we create packages with our industry so that overnight visits come to stay, rather than the drop-in and depart again? So itinerary pieces will be developed because of that hub and spoke, all connected back to trying to generate incremental revenues to and within Bridgewater, but there will definitely be spillouts.
Councilor Caldwell, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, so I was hoping that the marketing levy would result in more money directly for events. And so when we've got an estimated 83% going to a staff position, this makes me somewhat uneasy. I'd rather see a higher percentage going directly into seating events. So I don't know. I don't know if it's possible to have more of a part-time position, higher than 10%, but less than 100, or I don't know. I'm just uncomfortable with a percentage that high going into a staff position and not into events.
Yep. We grappled with that as well. The individual will be absorbing and undertaking a number of initiatives and work that will enable and grow and seed events. Someone has to spark, support, and carry it forward. That's what this position will do. This position will work with the existing festivals that are in place to find additional and incremental investments that'll help to contribute and move things forward. But that element of coordination and facilitating all, creating the media releases, creating itineraries, the PR, grabbing the content, those photos, those videos, those pieces, which all contributes to making all that happen, will be an upswing. And so that position is a requirement to be able to facilitate that. Without this position, we're unable to undertake the full scope of these activities. And that's why we placed it at a full-time position to get this started, and for a 2-year to provide us with the opportunity to undertake the plan, to consult with industry about what they want, how do we leverage it, and to put some of those quantifiables in place, review it at 2 years, and then take it back out again to see what it can do. Just trying to give it some training wheels before we get going.
I broadly agree with you. So I guess what I'm probably having trouble grasping is, because I agree, I guess I'm thinking of this money, I'm like, great, because to me, I'm interpreting it as this money was meant to enable events. For example, not long ago, we had a proposal from Shapiro Shindig, who I think asked for $20,000, right? So I'm going to have a follow-up question on that. But I guess to me, a lot of the job descriptions that a lot of the job pieces that you're saying to me, I guess to me, feels like should be done by the event organizer itself. I don't picture us as, we're organizing the events. I thought the idea was this capital helps make these events that someone else is organizing take place. So just help me understand, like, I think in a bit more detail, like what exactly this role is supposed to do, who's it taking, like what responsibilities are they taking off, and then presumably that means we're also freeing up capacity elsewhere, because some of this stuff, if not all of it, is already being done by existing staff, if not by the side of their desk. So I'm wondering, like, what other capacity are we freeing up here?
Yeah, I mean, so the whole point is that there's been a lot of work done off the side of people's desks, and it's sort of been done not perhaps as effectively as we would like it done. So this has always been sort of the intent, was to have an activity that is largely funded from a user pay system to fund a staff person to, that's eventually going to get this increased even further. So that's always been the sort of approach taken on this one. And this is one of the few instances where we actually have a funded increase in staff that's brought in by another levy. I know it's a tax of another flavor, it's a levy, but it's a user-paid levy. So when we look at, we're going to bring back to council in a couple of weeks, our overall potential position requirement and other resources to tackle some of the strategic and operational requirements. This is the only one that's funded from an activity that we've already got in the build. So I know that doesn't fully respond to your question, but just some context.
I hear you, and there are a number of pieces that are not being done now because we did not have a direction to undertake tourism and events specifically. It's been supported. The economic development officer role, having events added to that capacity, to that position, has been a significant undertaking, given what we're attempting to achieve. Our community has not been tourism focused. They do not package, they do not build itineraries, they do not market. Helping them through the development of a collaborative approach to creating a tourism and event development plan is about engaging them through that process to bring them up to speed. Because we've been defunct of having that resource. So that's why the 2 years, bringing folks along, it would be my aspiration that this position actually pays for itself so that we're synchronized, we're leveraging every opportunity, and we've pulled in resources, we've transferred skill sets, and taken ourselves even further above where we are currently. But currently, we do not have the ability to undertake this initiative and fulfill the objectives of the marketing levy with current staff. And I would suggest that perhaps even under that, we would not be able to, it would not be advisable to take current staff under taxpayer to support development of the tourism and event development roles when we have a marketing levy that's intended to provide those support services. And again, hearing your comments, the objective is to increase that levy base so that we can increase the volume of investment going into events. But we don't have a strategic plan for that yet, and we don't have engagement from the industry to help shape where we're trying to head with it. So that's why asking for the 2 years as a pilot to move through the process, to help identify and move those pieces forward, it would give us that opportunity to get started. I would also suggest that because we don't have a major event application form in place yet, that's one of the pieces that this individual will do. While this 2026-27 role and the subsequent year is intended to be taken out of each of the current fiscal years, we have in reserve currently $92,000. So should we, because that's sitting here, that's kind of the backup as we get this going, should we be in a position that we want to look at pulling some of that seed money to increase the reserve that could be leveraged for event development, we could do that. Again, every organization may come forward with an application. Their volumes will be a different amount, but we will be creating an application that is specific to, if you're a one-day event, what is that economic impact? Are you packaging and creating overnight stays? If it's a one pop in and pop out and there's no packaging, no dovetailing to generate incremental spend within our businesses, the amount of money that you might be receiving. Again, the framework will be there to support that when this investment is made, it is coming back. And it's kind of that caveat as well. We'll be training them. You don't create an event in Bridgewater unless it's got overnight bookings tied to it, and that you've created that online booking system, and that we get incremental revenue, and that they're working with our restaurants and accommodations to help expand on that impact. But it will take us a little bit to get there. I can certainly vouch for it from my role and now being involved with events and some of the other pieces. It takes time to to even have organizations think this way and help to frame them. So that's where we have some reserve. So not to suggest that that balance that's sitting there is our only limitation. We do have that other money sitting in reserve, and it can be brought in, but we do not have an application in place right now, and we want to be able to put that in there before we award a $20,000 investment for a one-day event that may or may not have built overnight packages nor established food vendors and components. So we just want to have a chance to put those frameworks in place. But we do have more money there.
Councillor Neal.
Do we have other communities that have examples of this sort of position?
Correct, we do. Yep. Yarmouth, Halifax. Actually, Discover Halifax has a team of probably 8 to 10 employees who do this. Yarmouth and Acadian Shores has a team of 5 that do this. We're talking about one position.
Do we know what they publish any return on investment data on that?
In their annual reports, they do.
Yeah. I guess we don't know that data off by hand, though. We'll look it up.
I did not
It's a
do
very
an
specific
analysis. What we did do was we looked at other areas and looking at a framework. We are permitted and are able to do the framework that we're bringing forward here today. And that, and again, some might say that you need to do marketing before you do major events. And so why wouldn't you put more money into marketing? We need those assets, videos, et cetera, to stage and create those elements. So again, in absence of having our own tourism and event development plan and how we can best generate those revenues, increase overnight stays. Again, the beauty of the marketing levy is it grows if we increase overnight stays. So events, you want to be able to acquire more resources to invest, help us build overnight stays so that the levy increases. It has to be a perpetuating resource.
Councillor Conklin.
So you say we're at about 65%, so we're drawing revenue or the levy from approximately 65% of the properties. And the hotels account for
88, I think.
88. How much more revenue can we drive out of the hotels, because I don't really see a huge uptick in revenue from the other 35% small operators, just based on what you have listed here as far as projections go. So, you know, we're tracking for 100,000 this year, and then, you know, a couple modest increases of 5,000 over the next 2 years. And granted, I know you'd rather, you know, exceed your revenue target than not hit it, but I guess what you're saying is we would have this position, and I understand that the more work this new position does and the more effective they become, it will drive revenue. However, I don't really see a lot of potential for increase on this marketing levy myself. Like I could see the position, you know, increasing revenue for our restaurants and, you know, all the ancillary stuff that, you know, that's related to any event that comes into town. But just as far as the marketing goes, marketing levy, like I would like to see a concerted effort by, you know, whoever we bring in place to get that 65% up to 100%.
Of course.
And then we get everybody reporting, we get everybody contributing to the levy. Then we'll know, you know, we'll have a better idea of what we're working with as far as revenues. And just another comment, I guess. You know, I get where you're coming from as far as doing the package thing, you know, because there's a lot that we can capitalize on, you know, bringing tourists to town, sharing the beauty, you know, inside the community here. But I guess personally, I don't want to see us like jump the gun and start offering packages and promoting some stuff outside of our town until, say, Modal, or I guess it would be Modal, has somebody similar in place and we're working together. So I don't want one person in, you know, in the surrounding area, including Bridgewater, that we are funding basically through the levy, promoting the whole area. You know what I mean? It's not
Absolutely,
like
and that's why the intent
province and-
is that this is a Bridgewater tourism and event development plan and a
Yeah.
development officer to grow overnight stays and revenues to businesses in Bridgewater.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I must have been misunderstood when you mentioned about doing packages and stuff, but,
We have 213 rooms,
yeah,
that if there is a festival happening here or an event, wouldn't it be lovely if all of our accommodations were
Oh,
filled
sure would.
because Shipyard Shindig packaged with them and that they actually made it a 2-night? What if we positioned Harvest Moon Festival as a 2-night stay because you can also tie it in with the paddling event? Right now, no one comes and spends the night. The intent of this role in the position is to create those as opportunities to leverage it. So, and again, to your point, I would love to have the crystal ball to anticipate what percentage of rooms, can we increase occupancy rates? Can we increase average daily night stay, the rate, so that the businesses are sustained, that they're increasing their revenues, et cetera? I wish I had the crystal ball,
Yeah.
but that's what the tourism and events development plan is meant to do, is to look at what do we have for inventory. And let's not forget, we also have Exit 12A, and we have a highway commercial, and we have a component in there that we do anticipate as a direct result of the retail gap analysis, that we're trying to grow the volume of accommodations to help support not only commercial but also tourism angles. So the idea here is to establish, we had year 1 as a base.
yeah.
2 years gives us the chance to establish the plan, engage folks, look at those projections, and come back to you within the 18 months to give you the reflection of how does it feel, where are we sitting, and definitely, we want investment in these events. We'll start with the seed dollars that we have and put that application in place and get those pieces moving. Absolutely. We're not stopping. The intent would not be to wait until after 18 months to start awarding. The goal is get in, get these things started so that we can start to see the impacts right away.
I feel like we have a ton of questions that we need answered still. Like, I'm just looking at this, I feel like we're going a little bit in circles. We've been 30 minutes just on this topic. I know I still have some questions. I think part of it is the combination of, we have always talked about having this position. So that, I don't think that's the issue. It's when you have it on paper and you see $87,500 for this position, in combination of $100,000 of marketing levy, when I think we thought we'd be higher there and maybe a little bit lower on the salary. I think that what I'm hearing around the table is those things aren't reconciling, because I understand the work that this person has to do, for sure. I think we all understand that, and it takes it off of your plate. So there is a cost to having you doing this work when someone else can do it, because this is going to be funded by the marketing levy. You're paid for by the taxpayer. But I also, going back to Councillor Caldwell's point earlier, is I also thought there'd be a larger pot of money from the marketing levy, so that if there's an opportunity at the LCLC for a concert, Modal puts in 50% and we put in 50%, that's how we fund an act coming. Well, we would, in the past, pull that from general tax revenue. And in this case, we'd be able to pull from our marketing levy pot, which right now would be empty, because we would be drawing all the funds to fund the person, not the event. So I think that's where, I don't want to speak for everyone on council, but I think that's where we're struggling a little bit, is we thought we could have both. And I understand that right now, we can't really have both with a bigger pot of money.
With a caveat, if I may, Mayor, we have 92,000 sitting in reserve to be able to leverage. That money is not being touched. We had year one of collecting the levy. It's sitting in reserve. That can be used to augment that portion to get this out the door. Doesn't mean that you have to invest the 92 or what will end up being about $100,000. That can be seed money for events to carry forward. But operationally, out of the 2026-27 budget, to get this off the ground, and for a 2-year term, we would have that as a reserve to pull and draw in from while we start to build the marketing levy revenues. So you
Donna,
still have that as a reserve.
I think, there's no doubt that, first of all, there's no motion on the floor, which is convenient at this point.
Yeah.
And I know that if we delay this decision, it's going to have an impact on your ability to do what you had planned to do, which is to start effective the 1st of April, and that will then negatively impact our revenues. But maybe what we need to do at this point is just take it back, take another look at it, and we can figure out if there's we either bring it back at a discussion session or 23rd of January or February or another date, just to make sure that if there's other bits of information that we can bring forward that may help council. Unless, Mr. Mayor, you'd like to put the motion on the floor and defeat it, that's your call as well.
Well, or council may want to pass it. I don't know. I just felt like council had some questions about the hours at the position and, a little bit more detail on the role. And I get what Councillor Conklin's saying. It's hard to, whether we like it or not, we are coupled with our neighbors who also have a hotel, and there will be, the unintended consequences will be that if people want to stay the night, they're going to probably also fill that hotel, which is not a bad thing. But there's a lift for our neighbors without an investment by our neighbors, and we want to make sure that we're kind of working in concert and not, I don't want to give other municipalities an excuse to sit back and watch us do all their work and draw people to the region. So I'm disappointed that 2 years ago, we were moving in lockstep, all 5 of us in Lunenburg County, and now we're the last ones standing.
So we have the Regional Growth Management Committee tomorrow. We could actually add this on as a discussion topic, and maybe that would help to inform what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good with whatever council wants, but is it going to have that dire a consequence if we waited 2 weeks, put it on the next agenda, and council can formulate the questions that they have? Some of the questions you already asked were fantastic. I feel like there's more does that make sense to council to get that? I mean, we can keep going if you want, but I kind of was sensing from the body language around the room, probably also my own, reflecting on my screen, where at 30 minutes on one topic, I think we're starting to just kind of go around. Councilor Newell?
What does it do to bring to a discussion session? I guess when that idea came up, I would actually really like to have that, like have a full conversation with it. I think there's a lot of different opinions, so I personally would like to see this come to a larger discussion, because I think we could easily go another half hour.
So that's the first Monday in March then.
That's right. So that's the only, it's not a problem, but the only thing is we've got a couple of weeks to wait because we've got our next council meeting on the 23rd and it'll just be discussion session after that. So it'll be 3 weeks from now. Yeah. It's totally doable.
But the reality is I would rather wait and make the right decision than rush this and make the wrong decision. Yep, Deputy Mayor?
I was just contemplating how it would affect budget, but it doesn't have to.
No, it shouldn't affect budget because
Well-
it's coming from the marketing levy.
It would somewhat, because we'd be pulling 10 hours out of,
It would reduce the budget. It won't have a negative impact on the budget, let's put it that way, right? It would only have a positive impact on the budget. Councilor Caldwell?
Yeah, I probably agree with your proposal to, I guess, defer it to another meeting because I do support this, but to that 83% of the money going into this position is just not what I imagined. I imagined more for events. And I don't want to vote against this and just kill it. I'd prefer to, maybe there's a way we can work this out. And I don't know, maybe we're not getting there tonight. I mean, we haven't actually voted on anything, so I don't know exactly how everybody feels. But.
Well, and I would say this is why some people criticize the way I chair a meeting, because for some councils, Robert's Rules of Order would say, which we don't use, by the way, for people watching, would say you have to have a motion on the floor. And the risk there is you debate the motion, you debate to get the end result of the motion that you put on the floor. And the way we do it, I think, allows us this flexibility to ensure that we are making the right decision, instead of just saying, well, we're not there yet, let's just defeat it today. Or let's pass it, even though it's not really what we want to do, but we wanted to get to some result. So I would rather us, if council feels you just need a little bit more time or a little bit more information, that, to me, will result in the best outcome, whatever that is. So if you're amenable to that, I would ask that we move this to a discussion session so we can have a more robust
Okay,
conversation.
terrific.
Okay?
Great.
Does that work for everybody? Am I seeing some consensus there? Okay, perfect.
Terrific. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That takes us to the end of our agenda. We do have an in-camera meeting under Section 22(2)A of the MJ after this. Can I please have a motion to adjourn? Councilor Newell, seconded by Deputy Mayor McDonald. We are adjourned. Thank you.